Jeez. Hey now, girls, what are we going to start to build today?
Skating rink to skate.
That's what we're doing. So I'm gonna. That's exactly how she's gonna skate right there. So what I'm gonna start today is the.
So I can spin when I ski.
Is the process. Yes, awesome. Of turning this backyard space here. Take a little look. Huh? Turning all this to this. It's not that hard to do. All you need is a little planning, some patience, a couple of materials, and some cooperation from the weather. That's really the biggest one. So let me show you how to do it. So I've been building skating rinks for my kids for like the last 8 years or so, and the way that I'm going to demonstrate setting mine up is based on all of those years of like trial and error and really screwing up a few times and being dissatisfied sometimes and then being super happy other times. And this is the process that has led to success for me. This is also based on my climate. So this is in Calgary in Canada, and it gets pretty cold here in the winter, but then we also have some crazy Chinooks that come through and warm things right up and then cause some melting, and it's caused issues in the past, but this process that I'm going to go with here works pretty well. So let's take a peek at what you need for materials, which isn't much. So my design for this rink essentially involves large wooden forms that are going to go around the perimeter, and then a tarp or several tarps depending on the size of your rink to go around. So you'll see the tarp here a little bit later on. As you can see from this wood, I'm using mainly 2x6 lengths. I also have like some 2x8s and stuff that I've accumulated over the years and wound up using. It doesn't really matter. Basically the height of the wood is going to depend largely upon the slope of your yard. My yard used to be really sloped. I regraded it a little bit, but it's definitely lower down in that far corner than it is over here in this top corner by probably 4 or 5 inches. And we've got children running around. So based on that, I've got it nice and high up over in that corner, and it's a little bit less high over here. You can see that this is wood that I've used for 8 years now, so it's definitely weathered and whatnot. I did take some strips of plywood, like right here, and you can see that I used them. That's just to relatively join these together, because I wasn't going to go out and buy like 2x12s because those are crazy expensive. I also have pieces of plywood that are going to connect these links together. Okay, and again, this is all really dependent upon the size of the rink that a person's trying to build. So other than that, just a drill, screws. If you needed to cut your lengths, obviously you would need a saw of some sort. But I'm going to go ahead and start to assemble this here. I've got the three walls, and I actually use my fence here as the 4th wall, because all it really needs to do is hold the tarp up, and that's really not even for water retention so much as just kind of holding snow and actually protecting the grass. I did this one time without putting a tarp underneath, and without that little air insulation layer that it allowed for, it caused some burning of the grass. And then other times when I've had water leak out in a couple of spots just because of careless setting up of the initial ice bowl, it caused some burning of the grass there too, which wasn't fun and a pain in the ass to deal with. So anyway, let's get started here. Okay, so as you can see, I've just attached this form here, really just with a couple of screws in here, and that's enough to hold it still for now. I'm not worried about making this absolutely indestructible, because once there is a ton of ice in here, it's not going to matter. Now the only reason I've got a couple of these 2x6s mounted to the fence here is just because overcoming that 1.5 inches for starters, and then also this one here, for some reason I had this offset. I think it was just because of the links of wood that I had here. Again, we're talking about 8 years ago, so I'm trying to remember my thought process, but either way, it's enough that it's joined there. And then coming along here, you can see that I've just got those links attached to that small piece of plywood, and you can see that there are gaps here, but again, not going to matter, because we're going to use the snow and the ice as a shell as opposed to actually trying to make this watertight. And I've come along and got this first corner set up here, and that was just using 4 screws through here into this wood here, and I'm just going to carry on and finish off this box. Okay, well, here we go. And I know what you might be thinking, all right? What kind of messed up, weird looking, Frankenform situation is this? And do I want something that looks like this in my backyard? Well, again, you're not going to need to worry about it because all this is going to wind up being covered by tarp. All right, so when we're going to do that, some of the unevenness here in the tops of these forms and whatnot is all essentially going to get covered up by a layer of tarp. You're not going to see it, so it's not going to matter. If you're building this from scratch, a person could obviously take a little bit more care and ensure that everything matches up really nicely for that brief period of time where this will be exposed and not covered up. Because as you can tell right now, there's no snow, and I'm waiting for the first big dump to come along before I actually go much further with this. And I'm not going to bother putting the tarp down now because we don't have a big dump yet in the immediate forecast. So I'm going to wait until probably a day or two before I put that down. So when the time comes for that, I'll see you then. So one other thing I want to point out, just because I do have this one end of the form relatively level here at this end, and this is the lowest point, I actually also have it kind of just increased there with that hunk of wood, and that keeps everything now relatively level across this end. So again, I'm not worried about that gap underneath there because the ice is going to take care of that for me. Stay tuned. Well, I got home today and found that it decided to snow, even though that wasn't actually in the forecast. So I'm going to quickly whip out the tarp and everything that I need here just to kind of get this prepped up. All right, so you want a nice large tarp. You can see this one's still just a touch dirty from last spring. The tarp has to be big enough to not only cover the ground where the ice rink is going to be, but also come up and over the forms. It doesn't have to be completely hole-free. There are some holes and stuff in this. This is really just to help protect the grass underneath, create a little bit of an insulative layer in between the tarp and the ground itself. All right, so for this part here, all you need besides this tarp, I like to staple mine on, so I'm just going to use this little staple hammer, and then I've got some large pieces of wood I'm just going to use to kind of hold down the tarp until there's enough snow on that I'm not worried for the wind, which comes ripping through this yard. So I'm not worried that that wind can like mess around with that tarp. So as you can see, like I've got a little bit of overlap here, and I'm just going to start to hammer this on, and I'm going to make sure that I'm kind of nice down there, relatively tight to the ground. Just come through here. And I'm not worried about using the staples on this because, again, it doesn't matter if there's holes in this tarp. So in the spring, I can just rip this thing off, taking care not to get the staples on the ground, and then we're good to go. So I'm just going to keep kind of moving around here and staple this all on. So there we go. Tarp is all installed. Just have that wood kind of going around that perimeter, and then across where I doubled up that tarp right there. Again, yeah, just so it doesn't blow around. And now I'm just waiting for a bunch more snow, and it'll be easy enough just to pull the wood out once this is covered. Okay, I'm pretty disappointed. This is Canada. It is the end of the first week of December, and this is all the snow that I've got on here. However, if I've got any prayer of having this up and running before Christmas break for the kiddies, I'm going to have to try and start making this work now. So I'm going to get my hose and everything all set up, and then I can start to mist this and hopefully start to build up a little bit of a shell. Because normally what you want is snow built, like enough of a snow layer that it's built like right up along little walls, and then I mist, as I'm going to now, but I mist and just kind of try to create like an ice bowl, really, that will contain the water, since this tarp has holes in it and can't actually hold the water very effectively. So since I simply don't have access to that kind of snow right now, I'm going to have to just do the best I can. Lots of little tiny layers of ice on here, and see if I can simulate something like that. We'll see. So underneath my kitchen sink, I actually tied into the PEX line here some butterfly valves so I can control the temperature of the water here, and then just with Gardena quick disconnect so I can quickly hook my hose up easily here and then be able to spritz down or flood the rink. So for this, the first couple, this really takes some patience. I've got, as you can see, just the mist setting on my hose here. I'm trying to get just the tiniest bit of water out here so it can freeze. The last thing I want to do is create big puddles of water right now that can find little ways to get out. So it's a lot of misting. Again, if I had all of that snow set up so that I could create a bit of a bowl, it'd be a little bit easier. But for now, it's just some patience. So I'm almost done the first of what is going to be many light mistings like this. Like I said, this is truly an exercise in patience, especially given what I've got going on here with very little snow to kind of use as a bit of a buffer to freeze up in a nice layer. So I'm going to just let this light layer, and you can see what I'm doing too is I'm not going like directly down onto the snow. I'm spraying it up in the air so that, because right now it's about -6 or 7 degrees Celsius out here, which is kind of borderline, kind of like the warmest I'd want to start doing this. But this fine misting water is going through the air, chilling down even further before it even hits the surface of what will eventually be the skating rink. So lots more of these to come along. So I gave this probably about 6 little batches of water yesterday. There's definitely some ice forming. As of about the 3rd time I went to do it, I switched my setting to this one here, which is, it's called flat, but as you can see, it shoots out sort of like a nice wide stream, but it's still relatively misty, and it was working a little bit better with some of the wind that had picked up. So I'm just continuing to give just the lightest of doses here, because again, it's all about just trying to build up a nice shell. And the concern is if I get too much water on at this point, in certain areas like over there or whatever, it might try to be tunneling. It might create a tunnel underneath, find a hole and escape, which causes big problems and is very difficult to find. So I'm just going to continue the patience game. So right here you can see, like, I'm giving just a little bit of water around the perimeter like that. Again, not so much that it could create some sort of a river or whatever and be streaming underneath. And then just enough that the ice here will be building up just a tiny bit at a time. And then a lot of this kind of stuff where I'm just spraying up into the air above, again, just for maximum chilling of the water before it lands on the rink. Help it freeze as quickly as possible. So I'm probably about 15 or so light soakings in. Today while I was at work, it snowed outside, so you can see I'm now just using the hose, and this is on kind of like the regular shower setting here to actually moisten that snow to kind of create what will be rapidly freezing ice, which is pretty nice. I also used my just a broom, because I'm not quite confident enough to step on this yet without cracking my foundation, but I used a broom just to kind of sweep some of the snow right up close along the edges there a little bit, and I just gave it like a light little spritz just to kind of wet it down to hopefully create a little bit more of a wall there. And yeah, things are progressing along quite nicely here. I'm going to wind up giving it probably 3 or 4 little doses of water again today. It's a little bit warmer than it was on the weekend, unfortunately, right around like -6 right now Celsius, so still cold enough to do stuff. But I want to have a good foundation established here, because it is going to be a little bit warmer, crossing up above freezing for at least 1 day this week, and I don't want to lose what I've accomplished so far. So this is the end of day 4 here. Now again, with the warmer temperatures, I haven't been able to flood as much as I would like to. However, because we did get a little bit of snowfall, you can see like here, I just kind of added a little bit of snow to kind of build it up just a little bit, just again to kind of help prevent water from being able to like try to tuck down those edges, even though I was fairly confident that it was good. Also, the warmer temperatures have allowed the water to kind of flow and level a little bit easier rather than trying to freeze so quickly. And you can actually see now here that I'm probably at least 6 inches up off of 6 or 7 inches up off the ground surface in this corner, which is the lowest corner in the rink here. Still definitely some ridges and stuff like that, right? And then some like chunks like that, little glacier type things. But this is probably going to get like another several inches anyway, and of ice on here. So all that stuff will end up getting covered up. I should also mention with the snow that I kind of set directly around the sides, and then just gave it like light sprays with water just to kind of ice it up a little bit. Because if I just let it get a whole bunch of water, it would just kind of become mushy slush anyway, and it wouldn't serve much of a purpose. So yeah, see what happens when I complain about a lack of snow. I don't think the video is quite doing this justice, but I'm going to go ahead and probably try to scrape up a little bit more of the snow around the perimeter just to help build up a little bit of a wall, wet that down, and then keep on spraying. So there I am with that snow kind of pushed all the way up around here. And now I'm going to give, again, kind of light sprays in along that. I did this with my corn broom. And then all the snow in the middle here, I'm just going to kind of soak and kind of let it turn into ice here as well. This is going to be very good for the rink. I like it. Whew.
It looks like snow water does.
Yeah? Look, I got a minion doing this here for me on the ice world of Hoth that this has become. Alright, so I'm at the point now where I'm actually straight up flooding here with the hose, just like so. This is my third flood, so yesterday I did this twice in the evening. And I'm getting probably around an inch or so of ice on here each time. As you can see in some spots, like right here, at least with our temperatures, it kind of it's freezing more on the surface a little bit more quickly than it is underneath, so you get the occasional air pocket, which isn't a big deal. I just kind of walk around and kind of crunch it up, and then the water gets in there, no worries. One thing is if you wind up getting a leak, and this has happened to me in the past, if there's an actual leak here and it is tunneling out, you'll see large air pockets. If something like that happens, the trick that I've used is just to get a bit of water there and then pile some snow on it, get it lightly watered just to turn it into ice, and that essentially floods it. But yeah, that can be a huge hassle if that happens. But for now, things are coming along quite nicely. This is the exciting part, because this is when things really pick up the pace, and it's going to take just well, I guess we'll see how thick of a layer I'm putting on at a time, but it's just straight up flooding for now, and then some finishing afterwards. So after several more floodings here, I just have a couple of spots where the original snow and ice that I had created is just kind of poking up above, and that's some of the higher elevation parts of the rink here. So just have to kind of keep going. Unfortunately, the weather is getting a little bit warm today, so I can't do too much flooding. It's going to slow me down for another day or so. It's only been this is day 8 though, so really not too shabby. Well, it is day 9 and we are nearing the end here. Yesterday we had a decent little dump of snow that happened, so I was able to actually build up the walls just a little bit further. And I did wind up giving it a few decent floods. There's still just like the odd spot here. I can feel a little bit of a bump from that little ridge that was there, but I think one more flood right now will have that covered up. And then after that, maybe just a bit of a warm water flood a little bit later on today, just to help smooth out any kind of bumps or ripples or anything in the ice. It should be good to go. And it is warm water time. So basically I've covered up any sort of ridges, any bumps that are on this rink, and now it's time just to throw some nice warmish water across here, just to kind of help smooth everything over and make a really nice surface. So here we are, totally done, ready, extremely slippery. I'm trying not to kill myself on here just with these boots on. If this gets really chewed up when the kids are skating on it, it's easy enough just to bust out here with that hose, give it just a tiny little skiff of water across it. Also with the weather here, we get these Chinooks that come through and kind of warm everything up a few times a winter. If that happens and the ice actually starts to melt just a tiny bit on the top. That's beautiful because that water then smooths right out and freezes nicely. So yeah, there we are. Now we just got to get some kids out here. Oh. Well, as you see, it's the first skating session of the season, and we're going to need a little practice.
Hi! Get away! Get away, Dada!
No cameras! Oh, and then you can kind of class it up a little bit if you want. Got some lights out here for at night to kind of keep things nice and bright. One other thing that I have the kids do is to make sure to shovel it off anytime there's any kind of snowfall, just so it doesn't mess up the surface. Yeah. And the best part? I don't need to leave my backyard. Roaring fire, double IPA homebrew, happy children. Huh? That's taking her to 11.